Bene, allora, buongiorno a tutti, sono davvero lieta di darvi il
Good
benvenuto a
afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to welcome you here to this new webinar organized by OCRIM. Unlike many other meetings, this is going to be just one single session. My name is Anna Buffa. I'm sure you know me. I'm in the communication and food. I've been doing this for many, many years. I'm the moderator today. The webinar will last around 30 minutes, including questions and answers. You can ask questions throughout the webinar, so please use the chat. Questions are anonymous, so feel free to ask questions very freely in a very transparent way. So at the end of the presentation, there will be a short Q&A session. If you have longer, complex questions, please use the following email, conferenceroom@ocrim.com. The topic we will be dealing with today is an incredibly interesting topic, and it's in the limelight. Gastronomy, technology, but also ethics. Everyone seems to be interested, so of course we had to deal with it as well. We will be talking today about novel food, and we will also be talking about flowers or meals based on insects. We will do this with Costanza Jucker. Now, Professor Jucker works at DEFENS, DEFENS, from one of the universities in Milan, Italy. Professor Jucker is the author of many publications on international journals. She's been working on protein inserts for many years. So the floor, without further ado, goes to Professor Costanza Jucker. She will be talking again about novel food. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me share my screen right away. I have a PowerPoint presentation I'd like to share with you. Okay, can you please confirm you can see the slides? Okay, great. Once again, buongiorno, good afternoon. Now, today's presentation concerns the use of insects and their derivatives in cereal or cereal-based products. Now, recently, we, talk quite a lot and often about insects on our tables. This is what happens, the radio, the TV channels, newspapers, magazines. So once again, it's a very hot topic, so to say. Let me share with you the following slide. You can see here the increase of the level of interest from the market in terms of quantities produced, but also in terms of, turnover in $1 million. For example, this is an estimate that this is, edible insects products on the market. You can see here the evolution from 2018 to 2023. This growth will also go up in the future. You can see here the forecast in 2026. So from 19 to 26, the growth should be 47%. Now, let's go back for 1 second to the recent past. Why insects? Well, I have to say that there's been a big increase of population, an increase and improvement of standards of living. So this means we need more food on the planet, and we have used plenty of animal-based products. This has led to exploiting, sometimes, irreversibly over-exploiting natural resources. So in the next years or so, the population will keep growing. So in 2050, as you may know, there may be 9.5 billion human beings living on Earth to be fed. So if you think of the, animal protein industry, well, this means there will be more animals to be fed as well. So once again, we know that there's a growing demand also of animal-based meals or proteins. So why are insects so interesting as an alternative protein sources? First of all, because we have a large number of species of insects. Well, let's say that, potentially they are, well, very interesting for us, so that, they can be used as a food for human beings or feed for animals. They have some very special intrinsic, characteristics, polyphagy, high fecundity, and life cycles are very, quick and short. I mean, they grow rapidly. The production of insects is more sustainable than other traditional protein sources. Well, basically meat. As for the nutritional profile, as we will see in a minute, this profile is really interesting, and that they are already part of the diet of some farmed animals. Of course, I'm thinking of fish, swine, and in general, poultry. And as food, they are already used or consumed in many countries around the world. More than 2,000 species of insects are already consumed around the world. Now, as for sustainability, let me tell you about the main features of insects. Now, first and foremost, they have quite a high conversion efficiency rate that you can see here on the left-hand side of the slide. Now, as you can see here, they need a small quantity of food in order to increase their weight for weight gain or body mass. This is due to the typical features of insects that do not have to consume too much energy to keep, the body temperature unchanged, because it depends on the external environment or temperature. If you consider, the same body weight gain, we have less emissions of GHGs.
Spazio per l'allevamento. Immaginatevi che milioni di insetti possono essere allevati.
Now, just imagine reducing insects. I mean, you can imagine millions of insects may be farmed in small places just by, taking advantage of the height of these locations. So, of course, they don't need much space. They don't need much water. For example, just make a comparison with other types of proteins coming from other sources. This is another important feature, which is so interesting as far as insects are concerned, especially in terms of sustainability. I'm talking about the fact that they can help us have a circular economy or circular production, which is another hot topic today. They can be raised by using derivatives or plant-derived byproducts no longer used by the food industry. Now, this means that on the one side, we can have plenty of nutrients. Now, these nutrients would be lost. On the other side, they help us mitigate another problem. I mean, the use of wastes, and those wastes should be disposed of properly. So, again, insects may be raised and used for animal feed, but also for foods for us. And what is wasted from insect industry may be used as fertilizer. So once again, circular economy. So this will help crops grow. Now, as for the nutritional profile that you can see in this slide, now, of course, it changes very much. It depends on the species. I mean, the insect is to be taken into account. So it depends also on the development phase of the insect. For example, larvae or adults. So it depends again on the development phase. It also depends on the growth substrate, basically the feed we give insects. Now, insects are very rich in protein, so the protein level is quite high. And these are highly, let's say, biological proteins as compared to the proteins that you can find in other animal-based products, for example, lysine. We also have fats, so there's a high lipid or fat content. This level is quite high. Of course, it may change. It's around 20 to 40%. And once again, also in this case, we have some essential fatty acids. For example, the linoleic acid, which is difficult to be found in animal-based products because animals are not able to synthesize this fatty acid. Well, you can find it in insects. So in this table, you can see basically that the nutritional composition of insects may change quite a lot depending on the insect or the species you take into account. So there are different levels, different rates of proteins from 35 up to 60, in some cases up to 70% proteins. You can see fats from 13 all the way to 30%. Then you have another interesting piece of, number, which is fiber. So apart from the main components, insects can also give us other nutritional benefits. For example, we have vitamin B9, vitamin B12. We also have many other types of vitamins. As for the fiber, the content is around 9%. They are also very rich in minerals, so calcium, sodium, iron, potassium, zinc, selenium. So again, it depends quite a lot on the insect that we take into account. Don't forget that they also have substances which are potentially beneficial, for example, chitin. So this is it with the nutritional profile. Now, let me now tell you about the European legislation. Now, in the European regulatory framework, insects are considered novel food. What are novel foods? Well, they are defined as those food products and substances that had no significant consumption level or history between 1997. So to be marketed, they need a specific authorization in an effort to assess their safety levels. So they are products and or innovative meals or foods, or again, foods that were not traditionally consumed in the European Union before 1997. So this is novel food. The regulation concerning the production and marketing of novel food is the regulation 2283 from 2015, also known as NFR, so Novel Food Regulation. The production, but also the marketing of insects have to be approved by EFSA, EFSA, the European Food Safety Authority that we have in Italy, and that is one of the key milestones, if you will, for the safety of foods in the European Union. Of course, the producers must be registered as, feed business operators. Specific production processes are requested. What you can see here in this slide is a list of, let's say, pieces of information which are required by the authorities when you submit an insect dossier. So you have a producer or a company wishing to, market, insects. Well, they have to submit documentation to EFSA, so the European Food Safety Authority, as well as to the European Union. You can see here some of the information that you have to submit. For example, the compositional data, the history of novel food and or its source, toxicity and allergy-related information. So again, plenty of insights and information that have to be complied with in order to offer top safety to the product. Now, the authorities, so EFSA, may also require extra information in those cases where the documentation submitted is not sufficient. The process is quite long. It may also take up to 2 years. Now, currently, the species authorized in the European Union for the production and marketing of products are the following. We have the Tenebrium molitor. This is a coleopter, and we use its larvae. We have the Locusta migratoria and the Akita domesticus. They are similar to grasshoppers and crickets. So in this case, we consume an insect very similar to what we all know. So again, the crickets and the Alphitobius diaperinus, which once again is also used in the form of larvae as such, or after being processed. Let me make some comparisons between insect powder versus wheat. Now, the comparison concerns especially the composition, the nutritional composition. So what's the benefit of insect powder? This is the nutritional composition table, and you can see here important differences. The difference is the presence of proteins. You can see here 3 different species in the blue box. So you have proteins from 45 to 56%. So in terms of wheat, protein is around 12%. As for fats, they are very high for insects, as we said before, so 35, 27%, while we have 1% in wheat flour. As for carbs, the carbohydrates are now 85%, very high in wheat flour, while carbs are much lower in insect meal or insect powder. So let's make another comparison. So nutritional composition, insects versus wheat or cereals in general. Well, so of course you have a higher protein content, at the same time amino acid. So the amino acid profile would become complete in this case, because we know that cereals lack essential amino acids. The addition of insect meal supplements the low fat content of cereals. In this case, we would use other lipids or fats with a high nutritional quality. And of course, this would bring about minerals, vitamins, fiber, and other substances, including bioactive substances that may have a positive impact or a benefit on men's health. Just one quick word on the percent rates. So when we talk about adding insect powder, so as I said before, in the documentation which is submitted to EFSA, you also have to include this kind of information. Now, this is a page from the regulation approved in 2023, so at the beginning of this year, in order to allow the use of Acacia domesticus, or the so-called house cricket powder. You can see that, the level is quite low because, the maximum level is 3%, so 3 grams out of 100 grams of product. So, for example, cereal bars, 3%, or baked products, 3%. In other cases, you have even lower rates, for example, 2% in chocolate. This is the regulation concerning the marketing of Alphitobius diaperinus larva. This is a coleopterus, and so in terms of larva, or powder, if you will. So in this case, the percent rates are higher, so between 10, 15%. In some products, you may also go down to 5% only. Now, in the bibliography, there are plenty of studies which are relatively recent studies. Their target was to assess the rheological properties, but also the technological properties, as well as studies or papers, if you will, on sensory situations. So they measured, they assessed insect powders in bread, for example. So they have studied different types of breads with 5% to 30% insect powder. This is a paper that we have prepared in collaboration with some of our colleagues of our department. So this is the food technology department. We have added the cricket's meal in bread up to 20%. And in bread, the cricket powder has had interesting behaviors. So in this case, we are up to 20%. So the presence of cricket powder has reduced the volume, especially when we use the 20% inclusion level. So once again, the so-called 20% inclusion didn't turn into a benefit considering many other parameters. As for pasta, also in this case, we have some papers. Inclusion rate is from 5 to 15% of cricket flour. So we have also studied the nutritional and the texture properties of the pasta. So once again, this is the same study that I have just mentioned. We have enriched, pasta with the cricket powder. This is freshly made pasta, for example, tagliatelle. And we can see that pasta that's been supplemented, in this case, 5% to 10% cricket powder. So the pasta enriched with cricket powder had a higher water absorption than the control product. We can say that the 5% enrichment did not compromise the baking quality in terms of consistency or texture or product loss. There are other, studies, papers concerning other products, biscuits, muffins, small snacks, crackers, but also protein bars. Now, all of these products are very interesting. So there are plenty of studies on these products. Many companies offer now not just meals, but finished products. For example, small snacks, something similar to chips. You can find them in Italy. Some chips supplemented with insect powders. What is very interesting is the protein bars. There are many companies already, let's say, investing in making protein bars in the future. What are the possible risks or issues due to insect consumption? Well, the risk is microbiological or chemical contamination. But I have to say that these are, easy to manage risks, if you will, in the farm. Of course, an eye also has to be kept on the processing systems. So if all the steps are correct and well managed, these risks may be avoided. Other risks may be due to the presence of possible allergens in predisposed individuals. So we know, for example, that arthropods can induce some allergic reactions in sensitive humans, especially because of the presence of arginine kinase and tropomyosin. So their consumption in some cases may generate, again, allergies or reactions. Of course, we cannot use insect powders for people already, let's say, allergic or sensitive to crustaceans, because in this case, there's a hyper sensitization. Now, on the other side, we also saw that insects have, if you will, positive activities on humans. There are plenty of recent studies, in vitro, but also in vivo studies are available, which is what you can see in the slide. Now, they may have a specific impact on us. For example, they have anti-cancer properties, antibacterial activities, and then the regulation of blood pressure, and so on and so forth. So plenty of, fresh new studies, once again, This means that we can use insects in total peace of mind, and even getting may have positive effects, especially on the human's microbiome. Now, the problem, if you will, in the Western countries are the, if you will, some barriers. I mean, cultural barriers, so physiological, if you will, or even psychological barrier, food neophobia. So, eating or consuming a food that for us is completely new, and this is also sometimes connected with the disgust. Now, again, this is one of the key barriers, probably the biggest barrier that we need to face. And again, we have to face this under different points of view, including the right information.
Verso il consumatore, diciamo, europeo.
So, which kind of approach do we have to use? I mean, to convince European consumers. Now, European consumers don't want to see the insect directly, so a recognizable insect in the dish or the meal offered, which is what happens in other countries where the consumption of insects happens every single day. So we will offer consumers foods that contain meal or powder coming from insects. We can also use extracts or other, parts or elements. Again, they don't have to be recognizable. So at the same time, these elements would, bring about the same proteins and benefits we have just talked about. So the inclusion of insects in bread, pasta, and bakery products may be quite a useful way to introduce this novel food in our food range. This is another problem. This is a current problem. We are pretty sure that in the next years or so, this problem will be overcome. I'm talking about the price or costs. Now, so the insect-based or derived proteins are quite expensive today. If you want to purchase 1 kilo of cricket meal on Amazon, the price is something like 100 euros. Now, of course, in the next years or so, the offer will increase, supply will become bigger, and prices will go down. Let me talk briefly about open and future challenges still to be taken up. Well, we have many, also in terms of research. Now, you can see here some of the challenges. For example, the choice of the insect species. As I said at the beginning, we have plenty of edible insects, so there are many edible ones. But those that you can really consider as interesting, especially here in Europe, so those insects that may be farmed by the industry, we don't have many species, around 10 only. So of course, there's a long way to go, just like, genetic selection, which is what we have done for other, vertebrates or other animals. The rearing substrates choice, this is another key topic. I have, mentioned the word sustainability. We have to use cheap rearing substrates, an environmentally friendly one. So it may be a byproduct of the food industry that may not used for other purposes. Well, this is very important. We also have to keep an eye on plant engineering because, again, this is a brand new industry, if you will. There are still plenty of, industrial, secrets. The manufacturing technology is evolving, including the real processing, but also the warehousing, the storage. Environmental impact. Now, this depends on the choice of substrates, as I said before. Production costs, again, as I said before, they will drop in the future. We can also use the insect, the frass. So the wastes, now again, this is an area that's taken into account and plenty of investments have been done. on insect frass use. We also have to work on consumer acceptance. And last but not least, we talked about the possible risks for consumers. Now, currently, those risks seem not to be major, important. But again, it's a novel food, so something relatively new for us. We are working on this, but as I said before, there's still a long way to go. That was my last slide. So thank you so much for your attention. Don't hesitate if you have questions. Grazie. Thank you so much. Professor Jucker, thank you. Thank you so much for walking us through this exhaustive, informative presentation. We do have questions. Okay. Let me start with the first one. Which are the regulatory choices? Do we have some specific standards or guidelines that producers have to stick to guarantee the quality and the safety of products? Well, let's say that recently there's been a high level of interest from the industry. So I can say that the European Union, of course, took some steps forward. The regulations some years ago have been completely refreshed. So now we have new guidelines and new regulations that we have to stick to, including in our country, Italy, the so-called ASL, so the local health units are, updating, their knowledge, because of course this is, a new production. It concerns animals, but of course this is completely different than, the habits we had in the past. We can say that the situation is being improved and also enhanced, but yes, the answer is positive. I mean, we do have guidelines. It's a new industry, if you will, but once again, we already have the right regulations. Can you describe the production process of cricket meal? How can we guarantee the quality of the end product? Thank you. An interesting question. Well, as for the quality, but also the safety of the end product, as I said before, also when talking about insects, and by the way, this is what happens for many other, meat-based products. Insects have to be reared and farmed, in the right way with the right regulations. So I have to comply with, farming regulations. If I do so, I can get, the right safe product. As for production, we need to say that crickets are farmed in big tanks today. The feed usually used is the same feed that we use for poultry. But again, we are working hard on creating new diets, as I said before, cheap, low-cost diets, so as to turn, animal meals into a sustainable production. There are many different, farming systems. For example, crickets are then frozen, so they are not fed for 24 hours, so as to empty the gut. Then they are frozen, then dried, and there are many different techniques. So the dry freezing is much more expensive. We can also use microwave technology. So it depends on the producer. There are different processes available. Then again, depending on how they have to be used, there are many different alternatives. For example, if you need to produce flour or meal, they have to be ground, but they can also be dried. Okay, so this is another method. We don't have just one single, method. In general, I would say drying plus grinding before direct consumption. There's a question on market overview or market perspectives for the future. What about the, perspectives for insect-derived proteins in the food industry? There are changes going on now. May these changes have an impact on the use of insect meals? Now, I'm not a marketing person anyway. What is necessary is to have as much information as possible. Maybe you remember at the beginning of the year, we had some items or issues with labeling. People said, well, we will be sold insect meals without knowing. Well, this is not correct. We need to tell consumers that they will be correctly informed. I mean, producers want to inform consumers being sold insect meal or powder, well, especially because the price is definitely different. I think there will be a high level of interest because, as we said before, this product is very sustainable, and I'm sure that today consumers pay so much attention to sustainability, much more than they did in the past. There are many differences also in terms of the willingness to try a new product. Usually men taste new products, young people, more than senior citizens. So consumers have to be informed also on the sustainability of the product. And, if you have the information, you are, let's say, almost ready, if you will, or you accept new or novel foods. So I'm sure that we will be able to use, insect meals and powders, especially when being integrated into other products. For example, athletes seem to be very interesting because they already use, protein bars. And inside, these protein bars, so we may want to use insect meal to increase the final bar protein content. Well, it would be great, I mean, to replace some traditional meals. We have a very last question that we just got. What about the fat of insect? Does it have an impact on the storage, I mean, the life, shelf life of the product? Well, I'm sure there's a long way to go. As I said before, insects have fat content which is quite high sometimes. So in some cases, we do a de-fatting, de-oiling of the insects. And this is what we do for some insects that may be used for feed making purposes. This is also very interesting as a business. I mean, turning insects into feed for animals, especially for fish and poultry. For example, as for fish, some insects are fatted or degreased. It depends on the diet of the animal, I mean, the beneficiary, if you will, but also for, storage problems that can be avoided. Anyway, there are some, papers and studies facing exactly this issue. Okay, this is great. Well, Professor Jucker, thank you so much for your time today and for this very interesting presentation this afternoon on the insect, let's say, industry in terms of novel foods. I also would like to thank the participants. So thank you for spending around 40 minutes with us. Please follow us on the LinkedIn, blog, and Instagram channels, so OCRIM_SPA. If you have other questions or if you want to drop us a line, please send your message or the question to conferenceroom@ocrim.com. Once again, grazie. Thank you so much. I hope to see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye. Thank you.